Born in Boston in 1898, William James Sidis made the headlines in the early 20th century as a child prodigy with an amazing intellect. This is a kid that fed himself at a few months old, learned to read by 2, and spoke 8 languages by the time he was 8 years old. William's intelligence, measured by IQ, was astonishingly high, somewhere between 250 and 300. Put that in perspective, the average person's IQ is about 100. A mathematician averages about 150, and even the famed scientist Albert Einstein, the poster child of genius, has an estimated IQ of around 200. Now, you might assume that a person with this level of intelligence would become a successful doctor, engineer, or scientist. But as William's story unfolds, it shows us that intelligence alone is not what translates into attaining wealth, success, or even happiness. This is the tragic story of William James Sidis, the man known as the smartest man to ever live. Born April 1st, 1898 in New York City, William had quite the unique childhood. His parents, Boris and Sarah Sidis, thought of him as a little adult even when he was just a baby. They did things differently, like putting food and a spoon in front of him when he was only a few months old. Instead of teaching him, they let him figure out how to feed himself. His mom said he was so happy about it, squealing with delight. It was like he was solving puzzles before he could even talk. The roots of William's exceptional mind trace back to his parents Boris and Sarah. Boris, a renowned psychologist, and Sarah, an exceptional woman who ventured into medical school at a time when few women pursued such paths. Their son William, affectionately known as Billy, emerged into the world surrounded by an environment of intellectual brilliance and curiosity. Remarkably, Billy embarked on his journey into language and learning at an extraordinary early age. By the time he reached 6 months, he had already mastered the alphabet, a feat that showcased the remarkable potential within him. The Sidis family, immigrants from Ukraine, brought with them not only a rich cultural heritage but also a legacy of intellect that would shape Billy's early years. At a tiny 18 months, William James Sidis showed something else extraordinary. He could read the New York Times. Imagine a little toddler flipping through the pages of a big newspaper. That's how smart he was right from the beginning. In the same way that he learned to spell, William taught himself 8 languages besides English by the age of 8. By understanding the fundamental principles of language structure, he was able to learn Latin, Greek, German, Russian, Hebrew, Turkish, French, and Armenian. He even invented his own language as a child, Vendergood, in his second book, the Book of Vendergood, which he wrote at age 8. The language was mostly based on Latin and Greek, but also drew on German, French, and other Romance languages. High school was a breeze for Lil Billy. He finished elementary school super fast in less than a year and high school in just 6 weeks. But life wasn't all easy for him. Even though he was really smart, people didn't always understand him. The newspapers wrote about him like he was some kind of oddity. Sidis was accepted to Harvard at age 9, but the school wanted him to wait until he was 11, at which time he was then enrolled. Can you imagine? Well, let's let the little guy grow up a little bit and then bring him in. Picture this little kid sitting in class at one of the most prestigious universities in the US, even giving lectures on 4-dimensional bodies. MIT physics professor Daniel F. Comstock was full of praises. "I predict that young Sidis will be a great astronomical mathematician. He will evolve new theories and invent new ways of calculating astronomical phenomena. I believe he will be a great mathematician, the leader in that science in the future." The stress of his intense studies and sudden fame took a toll on William, though. Not long after delivering that noteworthy talk, he experienced a general breakdown mentally. His father, who ran a sanatorium in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, quickly took him there for care. Upon his return to Harvard, William had become withdrawn and shy. He resisted any attempts to lecture again and showed signs of deep distrust of people, fear of responsibility, and general struggle to adapt to his abnormal life. Billy chose not to interact much with other students and actively avoided reporters, though they managed to catch up with him on his graduation day in 1914, when he earned his Bachelor of Arts at the age of 16. Despite wearing long trousers and facing the reporters with a bit more confidence than he did as a child, he expressed a strong desire for a secluded life, stating, "I want to live the perfect life. The only way to live a perfect life is to live it in seclusion. I've always hated crowds." The experience had left him with definite fears and a yearning for a more private existence. Although William told reporters he intended to live the perfect life, sadly, that was not destined to be. As the pages turned in the story of William Sidis, the tale unfolded into unexpected, darker territories, showing us the complexities of genius and the societal pressures that can accompany it. Amy Wallace, the writer tasked with creating a biography of the child genius, shares some insights into the truth behind the glamour and glitz, painting a picture of a young boy struggling to be accepted socially and experiencing declining mental health as a result. She shares that his days in Harvard, although celebrated in the media, were actually dark times for the young boy. His classmates thought he was a know-it-all, and he didn't have many friends. Quote, "He had been made a laughingstock at Harvard. He admitted he'd never kissed a girl. He was teased and chased, and it was just humiliating. And all he wanted was to be away from academia and be a regular working man." End quote. Let me remind you, this is a kid who hasn't even reached puberty and is already being bullied by classmates who are supposed to represent the highest level of education, which goes to show people's insecurities and jealousy will lead them to tear down others, even in the case of a child. Why are people like this? It seems like if he had more positive experiences in these formative times of his life, his path would have turned out a lot different. But let's get back to his story. Despite all the publicity, he actually despised media attention, and as an adult, he purposefully faded into the shadows, avoiding the public scrutiny that followed him through his early years. After working briefly as a math professor, Sidis decided to keep a low profile, moving around and taking different jobs under different names. During this time, he wrote several books on various topics, like a huge 1,200-page history of the United States and a book about streetcar transfer tickets, something he loved to collect. He used at least 8 different fake names for his writings, so it's hard to say exactly how many books he wrote under these fake names. Recently, one of his books from 1925, The Animate and the Inanimate, was sold in London for 5,000 euros, almost $8,000, to an anonymous collector. As he got older, things got tougher for William. He struggled with his health, and he didn't always have the easiest time working with others. He took jobs that didn't need his big brain, like working with a calculator in an office. Even though he could have done jobs that paid more, he chose not to because they involved using his super smart mind. Sidis managed to live a quiet life away from public attention until 1937, when the New Yorker magazine assigned a female reporter to befriend him and write an article about his life after being a child prodigy. Sidis found the article embarrassing and believed it portrayed him as if he were not in his right mind. Feeling betrayed, he decided to step out of his private life and took legal action against the New Yorker, accusing them of defamation. In court, Sidis argued that the magazine had damaged his reputation, and he emerged victorious, winning the lawsuit. Not long after that, on July 13, 1944, tragedy struck. His landlord discovered him unconscious in his modest Boston boarding house, the victim of a severe stroke. William, often considered one of the most intelligent individuals in history, lay there, his life slipping away. In the end, William didn't have the kind of life people expected for someone so brilliant. He faced troubles and worked regular jobs, not the fancy science or math jobs everyone thought he'd have. But no matter what happened, his story teaches us that being super smart doesn't mean life is always easy. If you love this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Your support is greatly appreciated and it helps us create more content for you. Thanks for watching.